Greetings, fellow hip hop enthusiasts. It is your comrade, the hip hop enthusiast. Now I'm back here with a vlog, and for today, I kind of want to talk about a unlistened album. I guess like an album I felt was kind of neglected this year. And when I say neglected, I don't mean there wasn't any people listening to the album. I'm sure there were a lot of people out there in the world listening. I know, what we got, like how many billion people in the world? I'm sure a couple thousand people listen to the album. What I'm saying is, I felt as though it's been neglected by reviewers and other fellow hip hop enthusiasts out there, and I feel as though they're kind of doing a discredit to themselves, because if you're calling yourself a enthusiast of this genre, then you should listen to not only the top charted albums like Kendrick Lamar's album or Drake's album, but the little guys as well. Now, the album I'm talking about is Last Winter by the artist Bass. Now, if I'm not butchering his name, I believe his name is Bass. He was, I think, born in France, and he moved to Toronto, I think, as a young child. He was like, I think a couple years, I think it was either a year or 2 years ago, he was signed to Dreamville Records, which is J. Cole's record label, which I think is a joint to Rock Nation. And I was only introduced to Bass by his mixtape 2 weeks notice, which was pretty good. I mean, what was it, like a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it was like a 6-piece mixtape, and I think there was a couple actual tracks that were produced by him and his collective, and then pretty much the other 3 or 4 tracks were essentially just him rapping off of other beats, other people's instrumentals. But it was nice, and I got a feeling what kind of things he was probably gonna do with his album. And I believe when it came out, I bought it on iTunes. I think it was only $9.99, so it was like $10. And when I started listening to it, I mean, you could honestly tell when an album is gonna be great when the first song you listen to is just amazing. And that's the case with this album. Literally, the first track in this album was simply amazing. And I mean, from the production, from the lyricism, from the background vocals, there was like an angelic kind of voice, pretty much singing in the background while he's rapping. It's amazing. It's great. And I don't know, it's just from track to track to track to track. Like, I don't even know how many tracks is in this album. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, actually 12, because the last track, Lit, was a bonus track I bought, and I got the deluxe edition. And yeah, 12 tracks. That's actually really nice too. Like, a lot of artists nowadays seem to come out with these 16, 17 piece albums, and tracks in an album. It's just too much. This is what I think this is about, maybe 90 minutes, which is not short, but it's short compared to some of these tracks on the on some of these other albums like Kendrick's and what's his name, Lupe Fiasco's Tetsu and Youth, which was like 120 something. I think it was even more than that. I don't want to say it was like 160, but it was close to that. Like, every single track on that album was 5 to 6 minutes long. I think the shortest track on that album was maybe 4 or 5 minutes, honestly. But yeah, 12 tracks in an album, that's great. Clean cut, straight to the point. And the features, there really wasn't too many features. There was J. Cole, there was K Quick. Yeah, not too many people. I mean, J. Cole was featured in 2 tracks in this album. And the features that he was in, they were great. Oh yeah, there was also Mac Wild too. He was good. Like, just literally every single track on this album I like, and that's really hard to find nowadays. An album that you could truly say as a whole you enjoy. And that's why I'm so, I'm not pissed, but I'm kind of like, why isn't anyone really talking about this album? Like, And I understand, he's a new artist, he's a new emerging artist. Of course, he's not going to get the same buzz as Drake or Kendrick, but this is not a bad album at all. I mean, this is probably one of the best albums to come out in the last couple years. I mean, in the last 2 years. Okay, let me say that. And I'm not saying the dude deserves a Grammy, but I'm saying, I don't see any recognition from anyone, and especially coming from a new and emerging record label too. I mean, J. Cole is, building a lineup of artists that, could very well be, you know, the next Drake's or the next Kendrick Lamar's. And that's one thing I have to give to J. Cole is that he really does have an eye for talent, and he's really looking out there for not only people in his location, people around his side of the country, but all over the world in a sense. He's signing people from all from different places, from different backgrounds. They have their own. And what's crazy is like people when I first heard that he was gonna come out with a record label, I felt okay, so he's just gonna have a record label full of J. Cole's pretty much. People, signees that are pretty much sounding just like him. But this album, Bass's album, really proved me wrong because I mean, the only tracks that I felt sounded almost identical to something that J. Cole would probably produce were the songs that J. Cole actually produced. So I'm not really mad at that, and there's nothing wrong with that because J. Cole is a great producer. But yeah, I mean this album is just amazing. I mean from track to track. I mean production is a 10 out of 10 instantly. You feel me? Lyricism is there. Charisma is there. Like everything on this album is clean. I don't understand why people aren't talking about this album. You know, I understand the buzz around Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly." It's a great album, but sonically, it's not all there for me anyway. I don't like every single track on that album, but do I respect Kendrick for coming out with an album like that? Yes. Do I believe that people, not only listeners of hip hop, but listeners of just music in general should listen to that because the topics that Kendrick is, discussing throughout the album, it does matter and it should be, heard. I do believe that, and I do believe those people should go and listen to that album. But do I honestly believe that every single track on that album is a hit? No, not by a long shot. There is a couple of tracks on that album I could have did away with, but I'm not gonna discredit him for trying something new. Like sonically, the album was great, production wise anyway. But it's just I wasn't feeling a couple of the tracks. But the tracks that I was feeling though, they were hits definitely. But yeah, I mean, and then with Drake's new album, I forget what it was called. If you're reading this, it's too late. Yeah, he that album was like I didn't really mess with a lot of the tracks on that. There was maybe 2 or 3 tracks that I honestly could say were really great, and probably one of Drake's best works in his recent years. But almost 60-70% of that album I really wasn't messing with, and that's pretty bad coming from a Drake album. For the most part, I tend to enjoy Drake's albums. But in the recent years, in the last 2 years, his 2 albums, nothing was the same. And this, I guess, mixtape / album, I just really wasn't messing with. And I guess maybe it just needs time to grow because honestly, I wasn't really liking Take Care when it came out back in 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2011 or 2012. But yeah, I really wasn't messing with that album as much too. But it kind of grew on me, and now it's like one of my favorite albums. So I guess I just have to let it kind of soothe in, kind of sink in. But yeah, that's pretty much my vlog, man. I just want to put it out there that Bass Last Winter is a hit. All you so-called hip-hop enthusiasts, if you didn't listen to this, then you're not really a hip-hop enthusiast because you're not really listening to hip-hop, But yeah, that's me, the hip-hop enthusiast. I'm out. Deuces.